Shabbat Shalom. So this week's Torah portion is called Parshat Ekev. So in the grand scheme of the book of Deuteronomy, Moses is in his second oration, getting ready to say goodbye to the children that he shepherded through the wilderness over the past 40 years. And the theme of these orations are all about love and respect and preparing his children, the Israelites, the God wrestlers, onto the next phase of their lives. It's been 40 years for them in this wilderness, and it is necessary to educate them, to prepare them for the next step of their journey. And the main theme of this week's portion is this line that comes in the book of Deuteronomy in chapter 8, verse 3, that a human being does not live on bread alone, but that one may live on anything that the eternal decrees. And so from the start of this week's narrative, it's all about this interdependence that we have with our environment. So it's not only our actions that are important, but also our state of mind and our humility and our feeling of this essential vulnerability or powerlessness in the face of the reality of that we've been given. Maybe this is a feeling that we have been feeling over these past few months. So the past couple of weeks, I've been speaking a lot about this nation, this tribe, who have been wandering in the wilderness. And we have to be reminded that this generation, they did not experience the exodus from Egypt. They did not experience all of the plagues. They did not experience all of the miracles. The generation before them witnessed firsthand, they saw the miracles. The wilderness generation only heard about them. They only heard the stories. And so to us, we enter into this wilderness narrative only hearing about the miracles that happened before. So today the conversation is about seeing and hearing and about telling stories. And there's this idea of this thirst to want to know more, to want to know what it was like to be with that generation that left the narrow place behind, that saw the miracles, that knew how to see miracles, and that how do we in our own lives, in our own time today, begin to expand our vision so that we can see miracles again. Miracles are happening every day, every breath, and sometimes we lose the vision of being able to see the miracles firsthand. This is what our Torah comes to teach us, to learn how to live more fully in the present moment, how to really become awake in the moment, to everything, to the beauty and the preciousness of it all. Our Torah portion opens up with these words, Bahaya ekev tishme'un. Bahaya ekev tishme'un. And it will be because you will listen. So Mark Nebo, one of my favorite writers, he writes, the further I wake into life, the more I realize that God is everywhere and the extraordinary is waiting quietly beneath the skin of all that is ordinary. Light is both the broken bottle and the diamond, and music is both the flowing violin and the water dripping from the drainage pipe. Yes, God is under the porch, as well as on top of the mountain. And joy is both in the front row of the bleachers, if we are willing to be where we are right now. So seeking God in new ways today. In this week's reading, we learn to experience God in precipitation, condensation, and evaporation. So this week, God is the hydrological cycle. So if we need a quick science redo, this cycle, the hydrological cycle, describes how water evaporates from the surface of the earth, rises into the atmosphere, cools and condenses as rain or snow in clouds, and falls again to the surface as precipitation. The water falling on land collects in rivers and lakes, soils and porous layers of the rocks, and much of it flows back into the oceans, where it once again evaporates. So this doesn't just happen on its own. We play a major role in it, as far as the book of Deuteronomy teaches us. Listen to the opening of the Torah portion. If then you obey the commandments that I enjoin upon you this day, loving thy God, the wellspring of life, and serving God with all of your heart and soul, I will grant rain for your land in the season, the early rain and the late rain, You shall gather in your new grain, wine, and oil. I will also provide grass in the fields for your cattle, and thus you shall eat your fill. So this text, the opening of this text, if then, always reminds me of math class, these if then statements, which were always a challenge. God provides water if we love God. But this is not what we want to write on our science tests, maybe on our philosophy tests, maybe theology. Nevertheless, the message rings true for me today. I seek to experience God in everything. Everything for me is God. There is no space where God is not. God for me is the hydrological cycle, and if I do not try to do my best in part to protect this world, to protect our natural resources, then there will be none. We are beings of water. We are part of the hydrological cycle and part of God. This teaching at every turn is trying to remind us of our interconnectedness to the one who is, the wellspring of life. And this week's metaphor is rain. I hear rain outside. Rain, I believe, is God's love pouring down on us. It is this endless cycle. Listen to the story rain tells the next time it falls. Hear her soothing song. The Hasidic Rebbe's offer a parallel metaphor about rain. They teach us rain represents the reciprocal relationship between heaven and earth. A vapor rises from the earth to the heavens, and the heaven returns it as rain, which quenches the face of the land. This represents the spiritual truth that an arousal from below, what we do below, evokes an arousal from above. This is called in mystical teaching theurgy. What we do here affects a divine realm. God responds to the efforts of human beings, reciprocating our prayers, yearning and deeds with nurture from above. This is the Hasidic understanding of the hydrological cycle, a mystical doctrine of the rain, watered land, a symbol of God's love. Sometimes we forget how interdependent each and every one of us is with the whole community and with the earth that we've been blessed to live on. We have no effect on earth and each other when we forget this. When we are awakened to this truth, we can really realize how important our actions are to this earth. To forget that is a lonely place to be. Our connection to God is, in this week's metaphor, like the hydrological cycle. We are an integral part of the divine ecosystem where God, the mystery and majesty that permeates all life, can be experienced. You might say that our prayers, our meditations, are like evaporation. That is, the effects are not noticed until they are condensed and they precipitate. And often the condensation and precipitation, when the wind blows, falls somewhere else, not right where we need it. And nevertheless, we offer our prayers because, in fact, sometimes there is a place other than where we are that needs our prayers more. We might not always see the fruition of our acts. We might not even hear about them, just like that tribe in the wilderness who only heard the miracles. But make no mistake, each and every one of us are part of this beautiful hydrological cycle, this water-based cycle. Our thirst for God and interconnectedness is a bodily thirst, and it is also a spiritual thirst. Isaac Luria, the Holy Ari, teaches us that the wilderness generation is a generation that thirsts for truth, thirsts for meaning and for purpose in life. But the water to quench this thirst, the knowledge to address the why and the how of existence, is elusive to them, sealed behind barriers of ignorance and alienation. But the thirst is there, awaiting satisfaction. Ours today is likewise a thirst generation, seeking meaning and fulfillment, and we need to locate the water source. How will we quench the thirst of our generation? Connection to God, religious observance, ritual practice, changes in every generation, and needs in order to speak to the community. The generation that was enslaved in Mitzrayim, in the narrow place, had connection to a God of miracles. The generation in the wilderness only heard about the miracles. What is the experience of God that we need today, and how will we share it and delve deeper? I submit that our generation is also a generation tasked with hearing the miracles, with retelling the miracles, as well as seeing and seeking them in our own lives in a new way. Rabbi Tzvi Hirsch teaches from Ukraine in the early 19th century, Comments on this phrase at the end of our portion, "Ve'achalta v'savato v'rachta," that you shall eat, you shall be sated, and you shall serve the source of all life. The analogy is that of a flowing spring. The more you draw from it by priming the pump, the more strongly its waters flow and offer its blessings. Our sages referred to a river that grows from its own shores. If you do not draw from it, it recedes into its own source. This is our God, who is so dependent on us that if we do not do our part, the system will cease to function. Our prayers, our actions are vital to the sacred system, just as evaporation is to the hydrological cycle. We cannot stop praying and doing our part to heal this world. We are the miracle observers, the miracle makers, and living miracles ourselves. My prayer for us this Shabbat is, amidst all of this uncertainty, to continue to return to our Torah, which is our waters of wisdom. To listen closely to the rain, to listen to the stories of our loved ones, to listen to ourselves. That we, the wilderness generation, faced with the unknown, know that we are not alone, that we are with each other. That meaning is born in the bonds of community, however those bonds form. That we are all part of the flowing stream, the storm, and the silence. May we experience the miracle within each and every one of us, every prayer that we utter, every deed that we do. We are God's breath manifest in form. We are the raindrops that nurture the earth. We are the clouds moving across the sky. We are the miracles that know that we are not two, only one. Shabbat Shalom.